Hey guys, I'm back again. So I was in the bathroom doing some manscaping. Yeah, trying to keep them foresty feathers in check. I was making good progress when, whoops!
We got a bleeder!
I nicked my scrotum. As I started to bleed all over the bathroom floor, I realized that I had nearly cut my nuts off. Feeling woozy from the lack of blood, my mind began to drift, and I wondered who else had lost their balls. And of course my mind drifted to the movies. Then for some reason I started to think about the 1993 movie Falling Down, starring Michael Douglas playing Bill Foster, a man down on his luck, and Robert Duvall, a detective that's on the verge of retirement. It's a story about how two men who are strangers to each other at the beginning of the movie, but their fates become intertwined, resulting in major consequences by the end. Summed up, the movie is really about two middle-aged dudes that can best be described as cowardly simps, and we follow how they navigate their turbulent lives trying to stop being incels and get their balls back. What more? Well, let's dive on into Falling Down, The Revenge of the Simps. Hey honey, can you call 911 please?
Why are you making such a mess? You need to watch out for stuff like this. This is so typical of you. You can't keep anything nice. You're such a slob.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Falling Down opens with Michael Douglas's character, Bill Foster, sitting in traffic in Los Angeles on a hot summer day in some piece of car with a broken air conditioner. As someone that literally spends hours a day in f***ing traffic, I can attest to the sheer agony you endure trapped in your car on the freeway, especially when you decided to enjoy that large greasy burrito before you left for work, and you justified that indulgence when you assumed traffic would be light and you could make it to work before you literally your pants. Anyway, so Bill's day is off to a bad start, and he just needs a break. Bill decides f*** it and exits his car on the freeway, and when a motorist asks what he's doing, Bill just says, I'm going home. Not sure I'd leave my car there, but it is a piece of so...
Oh, screw it.
Next up, we're introduced to Robert Duvall's character, Prendergast, who also appears to be stuck in the same traffic some distance behind Bill Foster. Prendergast notices some commotion and goes to investigate. With the help of another officer and a civilian, they push Foster's car onto the shoulder to help free up traffic, and it's at this point that you know Prendergast and Foster are going to somehow be connected for the rest of the movie. The next shot is a woman and her kid walking home from a store, trying to race to get to the phone. I guess, and holy crap! That house is an absolute mess! What a shithole!
It's really awful.
Well, as it turns out, the woman and the kid are connected to Bill, but the film doesn't go into it quite yet. All we see is Foster acting like a chicken simp and not talking on the phone. So with no words coming from Bill, the woman, soon to be identified as Bill's ex-wife Beth, hangs up the phone. Bill, obviously wanting to talk to Beth, attempts to ring her again. However, Foster realizes he only has 7 cents, and he needs to get some change, so he heads into a local store where he's instructed by Data's father from Goonies that he needs to buy something from the store before he can get his change. Bill, looking for something cheap and possibly help him endure the heat wave, grabs a Coke, but Data's father then informs Bill that it's going to cost him 85 cents, not giving Bill enough money to make his phone call. Foster is obviously annoyed by this, and Data's father, giving no shits, tells Bill to either pay or go. Bill, frustrated by this response, confronts Data's father on the cost of the store's merchandise. Now, to be fair, 85 cents for a Coke in 1993 is f***ing insane. Overpriced merchandise in individually owned stores quite frankly led to the rise of retail giants like Walmart and Target. And I'm not saying you shouldn't support your local proprietors, but when you rip folks off, they remember. Getting back to the movie. Well, Bill and Data's dad go back and forth with their argument, escalating to the point where Data's dad attempts to arm himself with a club of sorts, but with Bill being the bigger fella, he manages to steal the bat away. From there, Bill begins smashing up the convenience store, claiming Data's dad is ripping people off. It's kind of funny that a simple argument over a Coke led to Bill losing his shit. Bill is obviously holding a tremendous amount of anger, and rather than direct his frustrations at those who've caused it, he waits until he's in a position of power to let it out. It sounds like something a simp would do, doesn't it? Next, we cut to see that Prendergast finally made it to the police station, and we quickly realize that he's the victim of a practical joke. But the movie goes further, basically saying that Prendergast is the butt of many jokes, and it's pretty apparent, aside from his old partner, that no man in the precinct really respects him. Just like Bill Foster, there's a lot of simp energy here. You see it when he has a conversation with his wife. She nags at his ass as to when he's coming home, why is he not home already, and you find out that she's the reason that Prendergast is retiring early. I mean, this guy is just really a f***ing punching bag for his wife, and he rolls over every single time. Prendergast is an absolute shell of a man, similar to that in many ways with Bill Foster. Life has been beating down both of these guys for decades, and we see in the next scene that Bill has reached his breaking point and finally begins to push back. Foster's still making his way home, stops for a break to examine a hole in his shoe. It's here when he gets approached by two gang members claiming that he's in their territory and demands Bill's briefcase as a toll for his passage. The Bill from earlier might have actually complied with the gang's request, but like I said, Bill's reached the breaking point, and instead he lashes out at the gang members without much concern for his own well-being. Now, I will say that these gang members are complete pussies and just run away like little but Bill is taking that simp energy and funneling it into raw anger. Next up, Data's father shows up at the police station wanting to file a report, and it's here where we get our second connection point between Prendergast and Bill Foster. But because Data's father was assaulted and not robbed, Prendergast, who only works robberies, more or less scoffs it off. Back to Bill. He's finally able to get through to his wife, and it's here where we learn how Bill got into his current state of mind. It's apparent that he and his wife are divorced, and the ex-wife has sole custody of their daughter, Adele. To make matters worse, today is Adele's birthday, and Bill just wants to come home and give his girl a present. Bill's ex-wife, Beth, just starts shutting Foster down on the whole idea. She tells him he doesn't live there anymore, then takes a shot at him by saying he doesn't even pay child support, and when Bill just asks how Adele's doing, his ex-wife says,
"She's doing just fine without you."
"Oh man, come the f*** on!" Bill is obviously a guy that is down on his luck. You can see by his demeanor that he's hurting and really loves his daughter, but rather than try to diffuse the situation, Beth just keeps blasting away at Bill. I get there's something a little creepy going on with Foster, but shit, you listen to the way his ex-wife is at him, and maybe she might have been a big factor in Bill's mental health. You can tell by the way Beth talks that this chick is combative when she has the upper hand, and she's not above using her daughter to score points on Bill. Now, before you jump on me, I recognize that Bill was probably a control freak, but he's attempting to mitigate this by simping for his ex-wife. Bill's thinking this will appease her, but in actuality, it's having the opposite effect, and will ultimately lead to a very dark outcome. However, Bill is quickly snapped out of his rumination by the pussy gangbangers attempting to kill Foster in a drive-by. These guys suck so much that all the gunners miss Bill and end up crashing their car, mortally injuring everyone but one. Foster approaches the lone survivor and begins taunting him about his aim. I think that's fair considering the dudes managed to hit everything and everyone else but Bill. If we didn't have gravity, I don't think these losers could hit the ground. Anyways, the important thing here is that Bill starts upping the game and actually shoots the survivor, which is a big increase over his club from earlier. Although, Foster doesn't actually kill the gang member, he just shoots him in the leg and casually strolls off with all their guns in a duffel bag. Now we go to Bill's ex-wife, Beth, and sure as shit, she delivered on her promise and called the cops. This scene is an absolute gem. Beth is bitching and moaning about Bill. Oh yes, he's prone to violence, and he has a horrible temper. It was so bad that she left his ass and filed a restraining order against him, and the judge, most likely a chick, threw the book at Bill. Why? Well, the cops ask, does he drink? Beth responds,
Well, no.
does Bill do drugs? And Beth's answer is,
Well, no.
did he ever put his hands on their daughter?
Well, no.
Cop then asks if he ever put his hands on Beth.
Well, no.
I mean, isn't this just fucking wonderful? You ruin a guy's life because he allegedly has a temper? Oh man, give me a fucking break. He probably has a temper because this is always taking shots at him.
You need to work less. You need to make more money.
Nag, 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 nag!
Yeah, I think any dude would hold a grudge if every day you had to come home to this bitching wife that leaves you and proceeds to take your home, your kid, and even the fucking dog. And then on top of it, denies you access to your kid and hits you with a humiliating restraining order from some fat liberal California judge. I'd be way more pissed than Bill. The worst part is her justification to the cop.
He could, I think.
You think?
Oh, f*** off, bitch. I hope you die of cancer. Oh, yeah. Make sure to like and subscribe. This way I can continue to bring more of this horrible content.
I sure as hell will.
We then cut to Bill making his way through a park when a homeless man approaches him. The bum heckles Foster for money, and to Bill's credit, he doesn't cave to the hobo. However, what makes this scene interesting is that, unlike with the retard gang, Bill agrees to hand over his briefcase. Why'd he do this now? Well, it's signaling that Bill is taking his rage to the next level. He even tells the vagabond that he's giving over his briefcase because he no longer needs it. Bill's simp rage is starting to simmer. Coming back to Prendergast. The cops are interrogating the girlfriend of one of the loser gang members, and Prendergast has taken an interest in the drive-by shooting. While the girlfriend is providing her account of the incident, she mentions something that gets Prendergast's attention. You can see the wheels turning. He's making the connection between the shooting and the assault on Data's father. You can see this once meek fellow starting to come to life in front of you, but no one is listening to him. Next up, we see Bill entering what I'm guessing is a McDonald's knockoff in search of a meal. Once at the counter, Bill attempts to order breakfast, to which he's told they are done serving breakfast for the morning. Bill then proceeds to ask for the manager, and holy dog balls, will you look at the gap in this guy's teeth? Dude puts Michael Strahan to shame. Anyway, so Rick, the manager, informs Bill that they've stopped serving breakfast at 11:30, and Bill looks at his watch and sees that it's only 11:33. Now, I get the frustration of the whole we stop serving breakfast irritation, but it's 11:30! Come on! Any place that would hold on serving breakfast until 11:30 actually seems kind of reasonable to me. McDonald's stopped serving breakfast at 10:30.
Really? Yeah, I thought it was 11. I thought that too.
Well, Bill unfortunately isn't going to accept that knockoff McDonald's isn't serving breakfast anymore, and he pulls out what I think is a Tech 9 and demands his breakfast.
Will somebody get the kid a Happy Meal?
But because Bill's a simp, he changes his mind and decides he would rather have lunch instead. Bill tries to turn down the heat a little bit by talking to the other restaurant patrons and is greeted by this. Wait, what the hell was that? I've barfed a fair amount in my lifetime, and I've seen my kids puke multiple times. And never once has this sound ever come out. She sounds like the Martians in Mars Attacks.
What the
Bill eventually gets his lunch, and after taking a look at it, dives into this diatribe of how the burgers look nothing like the pictures and this hatred of false advertising. I get it. McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, Subway, all freaking do it, and it pisses you off. I want my high sodium trans fat artery clogging burger to look like the damn picture. But moving on, we then meet up with Prendergast going to lunch with his former partner Sandra. They have barely sat down to eat when Sandra starts drilling Prendergast about what the he's going to do in Arizona when he's retired. It's here where you really find out more about Prendergast being a total simp for his wife. He describes his wife as once beautiful, which means he obviously married out of his league and simped like a motherfucker for this chick. He found a hot chick that brought nothing to the table but her looks. Now she's a middle-aged housefrau that's become a nagging, bitter old bitch. Prendergast knows he's a simp, but it's the whole frog in the pot situation. He's trapped, and appeasement is the preferred strategy to placate the dumpy old hag because he feels that pushing back would just make the situation worse. Now, he tries to justify his choice to retire by saying that he loves his wife, but Sandra sees right through that bullshit. The two are abruptly interrupted by Sandra's new partner, Dickhead Cop, who proceeds to inform the two about the gun interaction at the knockoff McDonald's. Okay, look at the change to Prendergast. Just seconds before, he was nervously laughing, having an awkward conversation with Sandra, to now becoming really locked in. Prendergast knows there is a connection between this event and what he's seen earlier in the day, but Sandra and Dickhead Cop are still skeptical. Next, we catch Bill going postal on a telephone booth, but the significance of this scene is that where Bill has previously shown he was uncomfortable with a gun, now he's wielding that MAC-10 like a champ and doesn't give a shit what people think. Foster is turning the heat up on his rampage. Back to Prendergast. We see him on a call with both his wife and Sandra. Sandra confirms that the man who was at the knockoff McDonald's was wearing a white shirt and a tie, only affirming Prendergast's hunch that these crimes are connected. This is obviously emboldening Prendergast, but when he switches back to his wife, she immediately begins disparaging her husband with making snide remarks that he's pretending to be a cop. However, unlike previous interactions that we've seen between the two of them, this time you could see Prendergast becoming more frustrated with her tone, and he's even rolling his eyes. The Prendergast we saw at the beginning of the movie would never have done this. This case with the man in the white shirt and tie is galvanizing Prendergast's resolve, and from that, we see his strength grow and his confidence start to return. Now we cut back to Bill and probably the funniest interaction in the movie. Foster's hole in his shoe is really giving him problems. Bill notices that he's passing an army surplus store and decides to head in. It's here where we're introduced to the shopkeeper, Nick, as he approaches Bill and quickly realizes that Nick is probably the most evil man on the planet. Nick has just about every ist, phobic, and ick you could think of. He shows that he's homophobic, misogynist, racist, anti-Semite, and he's less than 6 feet tall. So ladies, here's your perfect hinge match. But whatever. So Sandra, Prendergast's former partner, shows up at the army surplus store, and neo-Nazi Nick is quick to hide and pretend like he didn't see anything. After Sandra leaves, Nick motions for Bill that he wants to show him something. And oy vey, we are treated to quite the keepsakes from the bad guys in World War II that Nick has amassed. Wait. Is that a Nazi Santa? Nick starts to hand Bill all his precious findings, including a f***ing rocket launcher. Bill asks Nick, why are you doing this? And Nick responds saying they're both the same. Bill obviously does not like this since he's just a simp and calls Nick an asshole. Nick, not liking what Bill said, throws a fit and pulls a gun on Bill. He then bends over Foster, talking about how he'd like to have sex with him.
Gay!
And Bill, obviously not wanting to take a load in the butt, manages to pull out a knife he got from the silly gangsters and stabs Nick in the shoulder. And then Bill picks up the PT-92 that Nick dropped and blows him the f*** away. Now what's interesting here is that this is the first person that Bill has actually killed. Everything beforehand, Bill had a limit as to how far he would go, and it's at this point that there is no going back for Foster. Bill has entered the simp rampage. Back to Prendergast, hanging out in the bathroom while his captain takes a leak. Prendergast is attempting to explain what he's uncovered about the connections between the man in the white shirt and tie and all the incidents that have happened thus far. The other detectives listening in mock Prendergast and even trying to tell him to stay in his lane, but he persists with his captain until his superior officer effectively calls him a coward and a cuck and tells him to f*** off. But unlike before, Prendergast does not take this insult like a little bitch, but instead uses the disparagement to pull his strength together and takes the matter into his own hands and decides that he's going to solve this case. When we cut back to Bill and he's on the phone again with that wife of his, you hear how his tone has changed. Earlier calls, he either didn't say anything or was fumbling around trying to find the right words, but not this time. His voice is strong and he's taking a much darker tone by saying to his wife that he's beyond the point of no return. Bill knows he crossed the line and cannot go back. He even talks about killing Beth for disrespecting him, which is a big change from where Bill started. When we next see Bill out in the open, he's no longer sporting a dress shirt and tie, but full black fatigues. The chains have come off Bill, and he's not taking shit from anyone as he freaking decks a guy shouting in a car. Then as Bill approaches a construction site, he's told he has to walk around. Bill did exactly that when he confronted the last construction site, but no more. Bill is now only about doing two things, kicking ass and chewing bubblegum, and he's all out of bubblegum. The construction guy notices that Bill is packing heat and immediately begins to change his tune, but Bill is done talking and responds with pulling out the rocket launcher and blows some shit up. We then find Prendergast having figured out that it was Bill Foster who drove the car from this morning, and subsequently he ascertains Foster's home address, and he decides to check out his house. Prendergast has greeted by Aunt Meg from Twister and proceeds to try to get more information about Bill. Man, Aunt Meg reminds me of Prendergast's wife, another crazy housefrau. Anyways, we learn that Bill has recently lost his job and that the man has been hurting for some time. The one thing that made me chuckle was Aunt Meg's dig at Italian people. Always have to throw in a little bit of racism, but moving on. Bill is on a tear. First, he crosses a golf course and offs an old man by shooting the fossil's golf cart, which sends it rolling into a pond with the dude's heart pills in it. The crusty bastard freaks out and grabs his chest right there on the course. The interesting thing here is that Bill's previous aggressions were really reactions to life-threatening situations, and in a weird way you could understand his response. In this particular situation, the old dude just hits a golf ball at Bill, which hardly puts Bill in mortal danger, but Foster responds disproportionately by pulling out a shotgun. Bill then even taunts the dying golfer, seemingly to enjoy the man's suffering. Foster then proceeds to jump another fence into some pretty fancy property, where a family is having a barbecue by the pool. However, when Bill was making his way over the fence, he injures his hand on some barbed wire, and then proceeds to start yelling at the dad there. The man that Foster is yelling at turns out to be just the caretaker, and he assumes based on what Bill is wearing that he's part of the property security. Bill immediately denies being part of any home protection, and just as you see the reality sinking in with the caretaker's wife, police cars can be heard in the distance. Foster springs into action and grabs the caretaker's daughter by the hand to hide in some sort of grotto. It's here where the caretaker, realizing the imminent danger that he and his family are facing, makes a plea to Bill to use him as a hostage. Bill, upon hearing this, is offended, and for the first time in the movie, we see a little bit of humanity return to Bill. He talks about how he lost his job and that it's his daughter's birthday, and the only thing he wants to do is go home, but Bill has succumbed to his delusion that by him returning home to his ex-wife and daughter, that everything will be just as it was. Prendergast, on the other hand, is firing on all cylinders. He figures out, based on Bill's rampage timeline, that neo-Nazi Nick was most likely killed by Bill, and then maps out the old man that shat the bed on the golf course and the barbecue incident, and realizes Bill's next destination is exactly where his ex-wife and daughter reside. Bill, almost to his ex-wife's house, makes another call to his wife, basically saying he's right around the corner, to which Beth grabs Adele and flees her own home. Prendergast, knowing that Bill's ex-wife and daughter are the next target, is about to head out to Venice Beach with Sandra when his crazy housefrau wife calls him. Prendergast, now completely done with her shit, tells his wife to shut the f*** up and stop acting so batshit crazy. He wants his food ready when he gets home with the skin on the chicken. However, just as Prendergast and Sandra make their way out of the precinct, dickhead cop stops them for a retirement party for Prendergast. This so-called retirement party is really meant to demean and humiliate Prendergast. But, unlike where he would have just taken their shit, Prendergast decks dickhead cop and heads out with Sandra. Prendergast has shed the simp lifestyle and has now become a new man, one that values his work as a police officer and has summoned the strength to stop the bad guy at all cost. Bill arrives at his ex-wife's house, just missing the pair, and since he's unsure where they went, he decides to hang out and wait for Beth and Adele to return. While waiting, Bill starts watching old home movies, but it's here where we see the family together years ago having fun on a pier just off Venice Beach. Putting two and two together, Bill's about to go to the pier just as Prendergast and Sandra arrive. Bill, knowing the walls are closing in on him, makes a break out the back where he ends up shooting Sandra. Prendergast races to help, only to find Sandra with a GSW out in the backyard. He yells at the bystanders to call 911, grabs her gun, and starts hunting the bastard. Bill, on the other hand, is heading down the pier where Beth and Adele are waiting. As Bill approaches Beth, he grabs her and embraces her as if they were still together, and it's just like he was coming home from a day at the office. Bill at this point is gone fully delusional, and Beth attempts to correct Bill, saying she's no longer his wife. Bill, in his psychotic break, counters that marriage is until death do us part. Foster reaches again to kiss Beth, but she reacts to something poking her.
It's not my real cock.
And Bill pulls out the handgun that he's been carrying. The people around them start to panic, and this drives Bill into a melty, and it seems just like when you think Bill is about to do something terrible to his family, Prendergast shows up, bringing Bill back to reality. Bill barks that he's having a family moment, but Prendergast persists, talking about the best thing in life is having children. He pushes on, talking about how he lost a daughter to SIDS at the age of 2 years old. What? Hold on a second. SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, is exactly that. Infant. A 2-year-old is not an infant. Children over the age of 1 that die unexpectedly is called sudden unexplained death in children, or SUDC. Now, SUDC can occur with children from 1 to 4 years old, but it's what Prendergast also says that completely fucking floors me. He talks about how his wife was never cut out for motherhood, and she went through the pain of childbirth and lost her figure all for Prendergast. And then, the 2-year-old girl just died in her sleep. Oh, come the fuck on. Prendergast's crazy bitch wife killed their kid. I know this is a tense moment in the movie, but holy shit, there's no other explanation. We see throughout the movie how Prendergast's nutbag wife is craving his attention at every turn. You see it when a female, Sandra, answers Prendergast's phone.
Who the f*** is this?
Prendergast admits that he always wanted children, and I'm sure he was a proud father that showered his new baby girl with tons of love and affection. Probably so much so that it drove the stage 5 crazy old cow into madness. How could she lose her man to this 2-year-old meat stick? You know, she waited until everyone went to bed, then up to the kids' room, and... What the f*** Prendergast. Oh, all right, I'm getting sidetracked. Okay, but holy crap, I could do a whole side video on this. Anyway, so Prendergast has Bill's attention diverted. Beth kicks Bill's gun away from him, allowing Prendergast to draw on Bill, giving Beth and Adele the ability to escape. Prendergast then proceeds to tell Bill that he's under arrest, and this snaps Bill back to reality with the confusion written all over his face. His response says it all.
I'm the bad guy?
Bill thought that by taking control of his life the way he did, it somehow justified his actions. Foster then proceeds to tell Prendergast that he did everything by the book, and yet they lied to him. Prendergast acknowledges that they lied to you, but that doesn't excuse what Bill did. Bill, now thinking straightly, probably for the first time today, knows what comes next, and he doesn't want to watch his daughter grow up while facing life in prison. So he lies to Prendergast, saying that he has a gun. Bill apparently still has some life insurance, and this way, his daughter can get some money. Prendergast pleads for Bill to stop, but at the end, Foster draws and Prendergast ventilates him. Bill then falls over the edge of the pier and into the ocean and dies. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Falling Down. The story of two simps that decided they had enough with being a punching bag for everyone in life and took matters into their own hands, but in polar opposite ways. Bill cracked under his stress and succumbed to violence as his way to his own retribution, while Prendergast found strength within him and was able to rise to meet his fate head on, thus climaxing the end with strength versus anger. While we like that the good guy won, it's very possible that anger could have prevailed, but in this case, it came down to resolve. Bill wasn't inherently an evil man and thus was conflicted about the path he had chosen. Prendergast, on the other hand, found his strength through his resolve to solve this case, therefore giving him the upper hand over Bill, and that's why he won. The movie Falling Down is more of a cautionary tale about life. We've all been punched in the face by whether it be losing a job or a loved one, but it's how you respond that makes the difference. But in the end, just don't be a simp. Hey, thank you for watching. What we do here is just satire, and we have a good time doing it. If you enjoyed and liked what you saw, please click the subscribe button. It'll really help me out. If you're really feeling generous, become a member or join my Patreon. I'm working on something extra special for those that are willing to give. Now, just leave me alone.